am the Don Dada showstopper. Right now is the one and only, no other. Just pulled up, lifted, and persisted, ignoring my voice of reason. I've seen things that I'll never mention. I've seen people do more for attention. Here comes Mr. Know-It-All. I know so much, but I don't listen. Lord knows that I feel that pressure. God, please forgive me for stressing. Just pulled up, lifted, and persisted, ignoring my voice of reason. I've seen things that I'll never mention. I've seen people do more for attention. Here comes Mr. Know-It-All. I know so much, but I don't listen. Lord knows that I feel that pressure. God, please forgive me for stressing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Duan and Only podcast. I have a very special guest today. He is from Muskogee, Oklahoma. He graduated Muskogee High in 1980. He went to Central State University, which is now known as UCO, and got his associate degree there. He is a professional and licensed funeral director and embalmer. He is married. He has been married for 21 years. He has 3 intelligent, wonderful children. Mr. Keith Biglow, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing fine. Thank you for your kind words.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little nervous, and it's nervous in a good way because you have impacted me so much that words can't even describe it. There would be no The One and Only podcast without Keith D. Biglow, and that is the absolute truth. It's just, like I said, it's just an honor to have you here.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here, but your successes to this point in your life is all on you. It's not on me. I can't take any credit for that. I just kind of told you and other young men what it is, how it is, and the truth. And you've taken that and ran with it, and that's why you're successful in everything that you touch.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Well, we're going to get right into it.
Okay.
We're going to get right into it. A lot of the times on this podcast, we usually talk about life. We talk about how to elevate your life. But today it's going to be a different story. We're going to talk about the end of your life and preparations of what you need to do during the end of your time. And I know it's a touchy subject to talk about. Nobody wants to really talk about it. But I believe that this episode really needs to enhance on being prepared to die. And my first question is what made you want to become a mortician?
Well, I truly believe it was my gift. When I was a little kid, the older lady that would babysit me after school, we lived on the same block where the church was that I attended. And sometimes she would go down there to the funerals, and we would get there so early that she would get there before the hearse came or right about the time the hearse came. And so she'd make me play out on the steps, and I'd watch the morticians unload everything, take the body up the steps, equipment and things, and then I'd run up the steps and peek in the door and peek in the church. And I think that may have piqued my interest. And then when I was about 13, a young guy who was 23 at the time bought one of the funeral homes that was there in town. And then I had this little bell went off in my head, so that's where you ought to go and try to get a part-time job.
Gotcha.
And one of the prominent morticians in my time when I was a little kid went to the same church where I went to. He was a spooky guy. But he was he was one of the morticians, and they were always astute gentlemen, wore suits. You know, drove nice Buicks, because back then most African Americans didn't have Cadillacs; they had Buicks or Oldsmobiles.
I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, the big old black long Buick, deuce and a quarter, Electra 225 is what they called them.
Okay.
And but all that was fascinating to me as a little impressionable kid. And I used to always play funerals with my little cars, little Hot Wheel cars. You know, when Goldfish died, put them in the back of my little Tonka truck.
Not the goldfish.
Goldfish, turtles, you know. And I'd procession them out through the house in the backyard, and I'd put them in a little grave. And, 3 or 4 days later, I'd go dig it up and see what it looked like. And so, my 3 sisters who were all older than me, they'd all freak out. But my mother would just kind of look at me like, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then after I started working at the funeral home, at the age of 13, it was really fascinating to me, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. I tried a lot of different vocations. I worked for the county building bridges, worked for the summer. Back then they called them the CETA programs, where, single parent underprivileged kids could have jobs. And one of the summer jobs we had, I was working with a guy named Junior Dawson and Mr. Grant, Otis Grant. And we'd start at 5 in the morning putting tar on the roofs of the schools. And these guys worked, and these guys were tough as nails. But I knew that was not what I wanted to do for a living, because, you have the sun, and you have the tar, and then you humans are the sandwich meat.
Oh, man.
And you bake until you quit at 10 in the morning. So I knew it's got to be a better way. And so I decided then, I said, whatever I decide to do in life, I'd like to do something where I use my head more than my body. Mm-hmm. Maybe I can live longer.
Absolutely.
And so when I fell into the interest in funeral service, I knew that was what was what could work well for me. And it just so happened that, I believe God just blessed me with that gift to get along with people. I learned the skill set on how to prepare bodies working for different morticians down through the years. Learned how to arrange funerals, to conduct funerals of all people, from the most simple services to the most elaborate services. I had the privilege to work at a place while I was going to school in Edmond, in Oklahoma City. It was McKay Davis Funeral Home. And Mr. Davis taught me how to deal with all people, how to treat everybody nice. And I learned a lot from him on how to treat people. And then when I left there, I went to Tulsa and worked for Jack's Memory Chapel under supervision of Maurice Jackson. And Maurice was one of the best morticians around anywhere. He could take a person that you thought was non-viewable, and he'd make it presentable where the family could have some closure and view. And so I learned a lot of my skill set on how to make people look normal as possible from him. And so I took, a lot from both of them. I learned a lot I learned some things what not to do. And then I took my own ideas and took the fact of, if I ever had my own at the time, I would do a lot of this and I'd do this and I might not do that. And I kind of came up with my own idea. And in 1992, I had the opportunity to go into business for myself, and I took advantage of it and never looked back.
Absolutely. Well, those mentors definitely sculpted and molded you into the most professional person that I know that handles funerals. I'll tell you that. That's awesome. I mean, just the simple fact that you knew at an early age that this was something that you would want to do. Not necessarily I want to be a funeral director or anything like that, but you knew that you wanted to take care of, would it be fair to say, the dead, during your youth. That's awesome. And, we need that in this community. For the most part, we all know that our time is coming. So we need that special person to help us during that time in need, whether it's us or our family members. We need that in the community. What I was going to ask you is did you have any setbacks, or did you have any doubts during that process, going to school, opening up your own funeral home or anything like that? Was there anything that just kind of was like, man, I don't know, let me think about this?
Right. When I first told my mother that I wanted to be a mortician, and told my sisters told me that I'd never have any girlfriends. Was I a weirdo and what was wrong with me? Is something wrong with you, boy?
Yeah.
And I said, I don't care what y'all think. I don't need no girlfriends. I'm going to have me a funeral home.
Yeah.
And my mother said, just promise me this, son. She says, whenever you do become a mortician, she says, have some personality, smile, and don't walk around looking grim and dead like some guys do that run funeral homes. And I just kind of laughed, didn't think much of it. But I always tried to apply that, to have some personality once I became a little bit more comfortable speaking in front of people, and kind of outgrew my shyness. Once I went to college, I kind of came into my own. As long as I was working for other funeral homes, wasn't really any setbacks, because I worked really, really hard, and I tried to represent them as if, whenever they'd send me out on a funeral, I would direct the funeral as if it was my own funeral home, to make sure that I left no stones unturned, and I tried to be, dress appropriately and conduct myself with a professional attitude and demeanor. And then after I got my own funeral home, to get to the point where you get your own funeral home, that's where you can run into challenges that can, if you're not strong and determined. Anybody that's in business for themselves realize that business is just business.
Absolutely.
Whether it's an attack on you personally, or whether it's just somebody intentionally trying to stop you from being successful, you can never take it personal. It's strictly business. And that was the most harsh lesson that I had to learn, because I thought everybody was my friend and everybody wanted to champion your cause. But once you get to the point where you want to have your own, all bets are off. And so you have to have the wherewithal, you have to have the commitment, and you have to have the focus to maintain your goal, what you have, the goals that you have to succeed.
Yes, sir.
And then you have to surround yourself with enough people, and in case you have some deficiencies, that can still help you maintain those objectives and achieve those goals. And so there's always setbacks. Even now, I have, 6, 7 full-time employees, and I have 22 part-time employees. The majority of people that work for me, their livelihood's at stake. So
Absolutely.
If I fail, guess what?
Then they fail.
Yeah. That's pressure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The other thing is, helping families, when they lose a loved one. I have one chance to get everything right.
Man.
And that's a lot of pressure sometimes.
A lot of people don't know that.
Mm-mm.
A lot of people don't know that you only have one. There's only
One chance.
There's only one funeral.
Mhm.
There's only one way to get it right.
Mhm.
And I believe what you just said is absolutely correct. Down to the team to have you, the team that you have that helps you push through, not necessarily doubts, but those setbacks that could occur that you had spoke about. And I believe that that's very important. A team is very important. I mentioned that on my last podcast, how important a team is and how important it is that you can't do it by yourself, that
Correct.
you have to have other parts in place in order for it to run good and in order for it to do well.
Correct.
So, I mean, just hearing that again is just another, reassurance that you have to be in order. You have to have your business in order. You have to have a team for that to go through.
Same thing, managing people. I have to have the right staff on the right service too sometimes.
Absolutely.
I have people from all walks of life to work with me.
Mm-hmm.
I have some guys with questionable backgrounds, but they've changed their lives. I have ministers, I have women, men, and, probably former gang members, I don't know. And I send the wrong gang member on the wrong funeral. We got problems.
Hey, man, I know you're talking about me, but
Well, you know
gotta
what I
light
mean.
it up a little bit.
So,
I know you're talking
but
about
you got to have, sometimes, you got to have the right people, the right service. That's the easiest,
Absolutely.
most professional way to say that.
Yes, sir.
But it is a fact. I take care of the common man, or I take care of the prominent families. It doesn't make me any difference. I give everybody service fit for a king, but you have to have the right people to help you so that family will feel special and look to you the next time they need you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to dig farther into it. So right now we're recording at your funeral home service in Muskogee,
Mm-hmm.
but you also have a funeral service in Tulsa.
Correct.
You also have a funeral service in Muskogee,
Yes.
and you also have another funeral service in Boley, Oklahoma.
Correct.
But what's most interesting to me is that you started here in Muskogee, but you're from Muskogee. What went into that, starting your business right here in Muskogee, Oklahoma?
Well, growing up in Muskogee, Muskogee and Muskogee had a big time rivalry. The first football game of every year and the first band competition of every year was at the Muskogee and Muskogee football game. Muskogee's band was always superior. Football team, Muskogee would always cheat at the last minute to win. And so I didn't like anybody or anything remotely close to Muskogee, Oklahoma.
Uh-huh.
So when I get to college in Edmond, my roommate is Keith Hughes, the late Keith Hughes. He was majoring in accounting, and I was majoring in mortuary science. And we got to be thick as thieves, best friends.
Absolutely.
And so I would come down here from time to time. Like when we moved into an apartment, we left the funeral home in Oklahoma City. I drove the funeral home station wagon, went by my mother's house, got a couple of pieces of furniture, some quilts and blankets, dishes and things. Then we came over here and went by his dad as Nudie Hughes. Everybody knows Nudie. But Nudie and Miss Joanne, as soon as you walk in the house, Nudie said, "What you doing here, dummy?" And I looked at Kiva. I'm like, "Who your daddy talking to?" He's talking to you. But he would call everybody dummy. But anyway, we collected stuff. But anyway, we were very good friends, and I didn't think anything of it. And so when I left and went back to college, finished college, I continued to work there in Oklahoma City, and then I moved on to Tulsa. And then I saw a vendor one time at a funeral directors meeting. He says, "Hey, I heard a funeral home in Muskogee might be available." And I came to Muskogee to try to buy that funeral home, and it didn't work out. So I came over here and bought this one, which was an old abandoned building at the time. It used to be People's Funeral Home. And I started from scratch there. And that's how I ended up with my first place here in Muskogee, and I've been here ever since. The business started growing, and then I had a lot of relatives. I have a lot of relatives in Muskogee. They started to use me from 40 miles away. So I would go over to Muskogee 10 or 12 times a year, in addition to the families I served here.
Muskogee.
And then when one of the black funeral homes there in Muskogee closed, I said to myself, "Self, if you had a place in Muskogee, you might could double the number that you're doing." And so I went back to the bank and told them what I wanted to do. I showed them the numbers and and they loaned me the money to start the second funeral home in Muskogee. And so then I continued to run them both for several years. And the same thing happened in Tulsa. I started doing more and more minister buddies and prominent people in Tulsa, as well as regular people that just knew me and liked how we did our funerals.
Absolutely.
And the same thing happened in Tulsa. And Tulsa was a bit more challenging in finding a location because you can't just go up there and find a building, put paint on it, and start. And then we had to build that one from the ground up, and you can't just get blueprints and start building. You have to do soil samples, and there's a lot of red tape and a lot of costly issues that if you're not built for it, they're going to run you out, and you're going to fail before you can start.
Man.
I'm too stupid to do that, so I continued to persevere.
Absolutely.
here we are, and that's how I ended up in Tulsa.
So basically, what you're telling me is you started in Muskogee.
Mhm.
That was your fertile ground.
Hmm.
Business went well here.
Hmm.
It went so well, you said, you know what? Let me go ahead and open one in my hometown in Okmulgee.
Hmm.
Business was going so good, you went on ahead and said, look, let me go ahead and get the finances for it and get the money for it. And it was just so good that they were like, look, if you're doing good in Muskogee, come on here to Okmulgee and do the same thing. Tulsa the same way.
I wouldn't say it that way,
No?
but I mean, in theory, I
theory?
guess you could say that. But
Okay.
to be honest with you, I never wanted my own funeral home at first.
Really?
I said that as a kid, but once I started working, I just wanted to work and make money.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
then as I got a little older and wanted to get married and settled, I said, probably it's better for me to get my own, because when you work for somebody, you give your all,
Okay.
but you still just an employee, and it's going to be the same old, same old. And I felt like I was ready to take advantage of that. So when I got this one, I said, okay, I got my funeral home. I'm good.
Good to go.
And then it started going.
Mm-hmm.
And then, running back and up and down the highway, 15 or 20 times a year
Mm-hmm.
to see a family when they lose a loved one. Well, that's at least 3 trips while you take care of that family.
Yeah.
So they got old.
Mm-hmm.
But to better serve them, if I had a place there, it was much more convenient.
Absolutely.
And that was what made me branch out to Okmulgee.
Okay.
And I was good then. But then the opportunity to Tulsa started coming around. I'm like, man. And one of the African-American funeral homes in Tulsa closed too. So the market share was there. And I had worked at Jack's in Tulsa,
Okay. Yeah.
And so I knew what part of the community where I could carve my niche out.
Okay.
It wasn't just like, Tulsa needs you to come. You better hurry up and get a funeral home. It wasn't that. I just felt like what I had to offer to the business, there was a niche for it in Tulsa.
Okay.
And that was what helped me get started and get going in Tulsa.
Mm-hmm. Just out of curiosity, how many black-owned funeral homes are in Tulsa?
Now,
Yes.
2.
Wow.
There's 3 so-called black funeral homes, but only 2 are African-American owned.
Wow.
Yeah, one of them is not owned by African-Americans.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow. Wow. I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
Most people don't.
So let's dig farther deeper into it. I have a life insurance policy,
Mm-hmm.
but I do not have a burial insurance policy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my viewers do not know the difference between the two.
Okay.
So if you could explain that for my people and let them know the difference between the two, that'd be
Life insurance doesn't pay until you die, correct?
correct.
So in theory, it's a burial policy, but it's just called a life insurance policy. So they're really one and the same. However, some people get confused with like pre-need funeral policies,
Okay.
where you go down to the funeral home, you pick out your casket and the services, and you list everything on there, and you take out a policy that pays for that, and you pay on that policy for a term or a certain amount of time. It's paid in full. In the event that you die before you finish paying for it, it pays the rest of the funeral. It is an insurance-funded prearrangement. So those could be technically referred to as a burial policy. It's just a policy specifically designed to pay for the funeral amount that you selected.
Gotcha.
So in theory, it could be considered a burial policy, but it's the same. I mean, it's the thing that would be different. But a life insurance or a burial insurance is basically the same, because you don't receive the benefits until you die.
Till you die.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so going into that, I know you have people that come in that don't have either.
Uh-huh.
So how do you help them? Once, I mean, they've already passed away. So
Right.
what's the next step if
Right.
they do come to you and ask you, man, Mr. Big, this is all I have, and
When I first got started here in Muskogee,
mm-hmm.
I would bend over backwards and extend credit and try to help people.
Yeah.
And then I almost went out of business.
Wow.
And my banker told me, says, Mr. Biglow, you're in the funeral business. I'm in the banking business. If you want to remain in the funeral business, you need to get out of the banking business. Very blunt and right to the point.
Yeah.
When you extend credit and people don't pay you and you run a funeral home, you have tremendous bills. It's big boy bills.
Absolutely.
And so you have to pay those bills to maintain business, because as sympathetic and kind and compassionate as you want to be and help people, you're still running a business. Because my staff, if I don't get them a check and it don't clear, then they're looking at me.
Absolutely.
If I don't pay that mortgage at the bank, they looking at me. If I don't pay for that hearse, they're going to come get it, and I don't have anything to transport the body to. So it all comes together. And so what I started trying to do was to meet them halfway.
Okay.
Sometimes now a lot of people automatically send their loved one to the cheapest funeral home they can find. Get on the phone, what's your cheapest funeral? And I'm usually not going to be able to serve that family, because I need a family to come in and sit down at the table. And if a family comes in to see me and I know they have limited means, and say, Mr. Biglow, here's X amount of dollars. We need to take care of a loved one and I need your help. What can we do? Then I can figure out some options. I'm like, okay, since you're going to do this, if you can meet me here, we'll do this, and we'll get it accomplished.
Okay.
Now, it may not be the normal traditional funeral ceremony, but we'll find a way to not strip that family of their dignity, make them feel special, and help them get through their grief and maintain their decency as they do have to have that economic challenge satisfied.
Okay.
And that's what I try to do. I try to meet them where they are. And then after it's over with, I call them back and say, hey, I know we've lost a loved one, and in next month I'm going to call you. Can we visit about maybe getting some small policies for, your children and the rest of the family, so next time you need me, you'll be better prepared. It won't cost a lot, but let's sit down and discuss it.
Yeah.
Then I try to help them do that, or either one of our insurance counselors do that, and then they're prepared next time.
How well does that, not to interrupt you, but how well does that turn over when you get those? Do they usually, because they don't want to be embarrassed twice.
And I usually don't embarrass them.
Well,
they may feel that way, but nobody knows what anybody's financial status is at my funeral home.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay? But that family, between me and them, we have that candid conversation. Let me help you be prepared next time.
Absolutely.
And they know what I did to help them, and I usually keep it confidential because sometimes I help this family, but the next family may need help a different way.
Okay.
So I try to keep it private with that particular family's needs to make sure they're taken care of, to make sure they feel good about what they did and taking care of their loved one, and still feel all right to continue on with their lives and get through that grief.
Okay. That makes perfect sense. So if I can tell any of my viewers, any of the people that are listening to this podcast, if you do not have anything set up into place, please come see Mr. Keith Biglow. He can get you in prepaid plans. I know this is not the most ideal thing to do. You don't want to think about it, but there's a time we all must pass away. And so I believe that this would be the most responsible thing to do if you don't already have it into place.
We're all going to die.
Yes.
We just don't know when.
We just don't know when. Absolutely. Yes, sir. So we're going to switch gears here. I'm excited about this next part of the interview. We know that you're a funeral director, but also you're a pillar in Muskogee. You are on the school board.
Yes.
I believe that it was one of the greatest things that they have done, personally to me. Not anybody else. But I wanted to ask you, what is your responsibility as a school board member? And then I want to ask you a follow-up question of what can us as parents, my son, he's 4, he starts pre-K Monday, the 31st of August. And I want to make sure that I'm prepared to be able to at least, try to make a meeting or make the parent-teacher conferences and things of that nature. So,
school board, first and foremost, the written description of a school board member is to vote on policies and procedures for the Muskogee Public Schools as presented or as recommended by the superintendent of schools.
Yes, sir.
And also to vote on recommended budgetary items, such as what we spend to operate Muskogee Public Schools. That's the main description of your role as a school board member. Now, you have some people that get on the school board and they meddle in affairs and they police everybody, but it is not the school board member's job to police the schools or the faculty or anything like that. Okay. Now, yes, you run into people at Walmart or come by my office and say, hey, this teacher cussed out little Johnny and want me to fix it. But when I go and investigate, Johnny threw a rock at him or something and then said something bad to them, but the teacher never cussed him. But, that's just jokingly saying it. But, I mean, those things happen. Yeah. Okay? But it's still not my job. And what I tell them, like I tell anybody else to come by to see me, have you followed the chain of command? Well, what do you mean? I said, have you talked to the teacher? And then if that didn't work, talk to the principal. And if that didn't work, talk to the at the Board of Education to the superintendent. I said, plus you have to put it in writing. On
every step that you talk to the teacher, that you talk to the principal?
If you have a grievance or you're upset about something, you need to put it in writing and present it on each level. Give it to that teacher. I'm disappointed. This is what I'm feeling, and I need you to resolve this. Can you help me resolve it? And if they don't do it, then you move to the next level. But you have to follow the chain of command, and don't be afraid to put it in writing to show this is what I feel. Because then when they present that to the school board to discuss, when I see it in writing, I'm going to take it serious. Okay. But if it's hearsay, she say, and he say, on the phone call.
It's really not much you can do about it.
No, I'm not going to take. I got other things to tend to until we get to that point.
Okay.
But that's when it becomes the school board's issue to talk about and vote and figure out how to help resolve that situation. But it's still not the school board's only position to do. So,
I think people need to hear that, though. I mean, there's definitely a chain of command. People might know you personally, but you don't need to be the first person that they go to.
No.
They need to try to nip it in the bud with whatever teacher it is. Or if, the teacher is in and out and whatever the case may be, go to the principal. So I definitely agree upon that and making sure that, there's only so much you can do, but they can do some things as well to prevent that. Correct. So I get it. Yes,
Correct.
sir. Yes, sir.
We also get accused sometimes of hiring and firing coaches, like we meddle or do something to get somebody fired. I don't do that. And no school board member does that. We may have an opinion when asked in a closed meeting, but that's not it.
Absolutely.
But, if somebody's doing something detrimental to the school and you see it, like if I see a bus driver come out to the liquor store, turn his bottle up and get in the bus and drive onto the school, quite naturally I'm going to follow the bus, get his name, the bus number, and I'm like, look, this guy's...
Oh, yeah.
So that, realistically, yes, that is responsibility.
Absolutely.
But still...
That's integrity.
Any parent could do that. But now that's different. But as far as the technical term, that is what the school board member does. Now, the other question you asked me about the school board, what was it?
What can we do? What is parents?
Exactly.
Yeah.
First and foremost, be involved. Not only go to your parent-teacher conferences, go up to the school and visit with the teachers with your kid, be a part of your kid's life as you're trusting somebody else to educate your kid. And if you don't go up there and see about them, you don't know what this teacher's teaching your kid. Okay? When they have functions at the school, go to those functions. When we have school board meetings, just come and sit sometime. You'd be surprised what's discussed at school board meetings concerning your children, and there's never more than 10 or 15 people there. I tried to get a large contingent of our community members to come one time. I just wanted them to come and sit there to show support. And it took me 3 meetings to get them to come. But it made a huge difference. And I was able to get my point across on one of the issues I was having in a frustrating time, when I was going through. So it works, but we need to start participating more. Don't just go to the football games and cheer for your kid, and don't just go to the play. Get involved in what's going on in the school system, because if you're trying to get your kids ready for the real world, that teacher's going to help you, but ultimately you as the parent, that's your responsibility to raise your kids. And you mean to tell me you're not going to participate in the education, the one thing that's going to drive them to greatness?
Absolutely.
Every parent should be involved.
Student athlete, student first.
Student. You're a student first and foremost. The extracurricular activity is to help you as a student get a scholarship so you can get out of here.
Yes, absolutely.
It all works together.
Yes.
It's no different than with the new facilities. No, I think.
Yeah, it's all I love it. I love it. And
with the bond issue.
I think it really needs to be said, I'm not going to point any parents out because, that's not my job. But what I will say is this, that Muskogee sometimes as a society has this stigma that, since their baby's the star, they get special treatment. Well, it doesn't work like that here. And it never has worked like that here. And what people need to understand is the more involvement you have with your children outside of sports, but really in the classroom, because you got to have a certain grade point average to get into college.
Correct.
You got to have a certain, I don't know, are they still doing ACTs? And I don't know what they're doing.
It all plays together.
You have to have a certain grade point average. You have to be accepted into these schools. There's other requirements than I can run a ball, or I can shoot a ball, or I can kick a ball, or I can hit a ball. There's a lot more to it than that. And sometimes people just don't understand it.
Right.
And so I thank you for saying that, because it needs to be said,
That's correct.
Another question I had for you was, I know school is about to start back up for Muskogee, August 31st. And I wanted to ask, what went into the decision of parents having the option to either have them go to school or go to school online?
When the pandemic started back in March, we had to shut everything down and the kids had to go home. And that was our first attempt at the virtual learning. And it was kind of winging it, so to speak, but we still had a plan, and they had to do that to get through the rest of that semester. Okay. Since then, they've had enough time to fine tune that to make it even more a better program if a parent chooses to have the virtual learning. However, there's a lot of parents that want their children in the classroom. So in assessing everything, the superintendent's been collecting data. They've been doing research, paying attention to the CDC, to all of the health officials, and monitoring the pandemic, the numbers and everything else, and came up with the most reasonable thing to do where, you can never satisfy everybody, but to where everybody could at least have a choice on how they wanted to take care of their children. And so we came up with, if you're not comfortable sending your child, you have the virtual learning. Or if you're not comfortable with the virtual learning, or, a lot of parents got to go to work. They don't have time.
I'm one of them.
They want to send a child to the school, and we're doing everything in our power to make sure the schools are clean, make sure the teachers are prepared, make sure everything is in order where it's a safe environment. Now, we know it's not going to be perfect, but the effort is there.
Absolutely.
And so there's been a lot of research, a lot of planning, a lot of training. The teachers have put in a lot of extra sacrifice to be better at virtual learning, so that in the event the pandemic gets worse and we have to go completely to virtual, where we have a plan B.
Absolutely.
But all of those factors have been into, we've all been sharing our own concerns and thoughts on the process, because I'll tell you right now, I've been vehemently against going into the classroom. I'm still against it.
Yeah.
But I know we have a plan to be as safe as we can, to give the parents and the individual families their choices.
Yes, sir.
But I just believe, being in the funeral business, I see the pandemic every day firsthand.
Oh, I'm already.
And a lot of people are underestimating how dangerous it can be. And that's my major concern, because I don't want anybody's kid, I don't want any faculty, I don't want any administrator, anybody associated with Muskogee Public Schools to catch this virus because of school. I don't want that.
I get it.
And that's my prayer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, that's kind of how we were feeling about it. Just to kind of give you me and my wife's personal view on it. We want Nehemiah to go back to school, just on the simple fact that, man, he has to interact with other kids. But on the other hand, I'm where you are. It's like, man, this virus is serious. This is a real thing. This is really going on. And I just feel like that plan that y'all had came up with was just perfect. Give the parents the options of either one, whichever that they want to do. And let's just see how it goes.
Now, I have a solution that you could do to so Nehemiah would have a little bit more interaction with children.
Yes, sir.
It's time for you and your wife to get busy. I'm just saying, some little more Duans or Duanettes, whatever it would be. It slipped out. I'm sorry.
It's all good. No, we definitely, we talk about that off camera.
Your wife's gonna be mad at me, but I got it.
He has cousins. Switching gears here. So, we've been talking about the school board and the responsibilities and things that we can do and what's going on currently right now. But I kind of have a personal question. What is one of your most memorable moments of being on the school board during this time?
There's been a lot. It's been a lot of challenges, up to this year. But the two things that jumps out that I'm most proud of is I had a privilege that most people don't get, and that was my two sons that came through Muskogee Public Schools. When they graduated, I was able to give them their high school diploma.
Man.
And I can't tell you, my greatest accomplishment in life is not the funeral directing, it's being a father and a husband.
Father, absolutely.
I come from a single parent home. My
Man,
father wasn't around.
Mine's too.
and growing into manhood, I had to wing it to learn some things. But one of my greatest accomplishments is being a husband and a father. And for me to be able to be in that moment and be the one that gave them the diplomas, no one can take that away from me. And I just get joy every time I think about it to this day.
Yeah.
And so it's just it was really a special time for me both times.
Man, that's awesome. You kind of motivating me to go ahead and run for school board.
You probably should. Because I'm not going to be on there long.
Absolutely.
My term is up in 3 years, and I may not run again. I don't have any children in, and I'm getting a little older. I'm 58. Okay.
I'm so glad you said that. Keep going.
The way that we train our kids and the way that we involve with our kids, I have AOL email, okay? That lets you know I'm a dinosaur. So now, that's just like being a mentor. I'm a little past that. That's for younger guys that have something where they can relate to kids and go out and play ball. I got 2 bad knees and bad shoulder. I can't play ball anymore.
I got you.
In here?
Yeah,
but down here, it's not happening.
You can shoot some free throws. Hold on, don't cut yourself too short. No, I'm absolutely glad that you said that. That just shows, leadership on a whole nother level. When it's your time to step down. Yeah. And all the listeners and all the viewers that are listening to this was a key gem. Knowing it's your time to relieve of duty, to have, next up for the next generation. I know that what you're doing is great. You mentioned mentoring. You were a mentor to me, and I'm just gonna kind of bring it back to the beginning. When I was in school, going into my freshman year, we had Rougher Week. It was a time where, basically the first day of school, we were in school, but we didn't go to class. We were in the auditorium, and I want to say Connors came, the military came, all them people came on day one. But I think that they, like day 3 or day 4, they had different mentors. They had different business owners come in and talk to the kids too. Now, I was a freshman. I was 14 years old, and and I'm not just saying this, but you were one of the people that I truly listened to, because at the time, I didn't really know if I wanted to go to college. I got my associates, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And when you came in there with your black suit on, I want to say there was a casket there too, that you went ahead and just brought it anyway. And Coach Hughes, I'll never forget it, he introduced you. And you talked to us for like 5-10 minutes. But everything you said, I was zoned in. The most thing that I was really zoned in on is when you said to be yourself. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Believe in your core values. Don't ever not know who you are, and to trust in God. And man, that just spoke to me on a whole nother level, just because it was like you weren't telling us what to do. You were telling us to listen to our heart, listen to God. Be yourself, and that was just encouragement on a whole another level for me personally, because I'm not going to say I didn't know who I was, but I was definitely battling, trying to figure out which path I was going to take. And that went into going into high school and figuring out what I wanted to do. Fast forward to 4 years later when I graduate, and you do a funeral at my church and you just hire me. I'm working for you, and it's just like it was yesterday when I saw you my freshman year. I know that sounds crazy, but that's really how I felt. I was just like, man, this man is like this on and off. I'm going to say on and off the court. He's the same man in production, and he's the same man off production. And that's what made me draw to you as a mentor, as a father figure. That's kind of where it lies in the mentorship. I'm saying personally, and for everybody that's listening and watching, I still work for him. I'm serious. I still work for this man, and it's not because I have to. It's because I want to. I want to draw on this man, and not to bring racial into it, but he's a black man that has a business. I'm a black man that has a business, and I need to see it. I need to have that reassurance and that refreshness of mind to know that I can keep going. I didn't ask you this, but how many years has it been? You said 1992, right?
93.
93. So, I'm not good at math. 27 years? 27 years in business? Okay. So 26. 27 years of business.
26.
26? This coming up Sunday, it'll be 5 years for me. So I'm looking at you as like you're my mentor. You're my father figure. So I look up to you on that aspect. Now for me, I'm going to ask you about mentoring kids and how parents can get those kids, not necessarily to you, but to somebody that you recommend and the people that you know, so we can have a better community for Muskogee.
They used to have a mentoring program, structured mentoring program through the schools, where they did background checks and things with that respect, where they had certain mentors to come into the schools and spend an hour or 30 minutes here a couple of times a week with kids. They don't have it right now, but mentoring goes way beyond just going up to school and sitting down and talking to a kid for 30 minutes.
Absolutely.
You have a lot of guys in our community that work hard, got kids in the system, and here in this town, they've been through a lot. Just spending time with a kid that is troubled in your neighborhood, just sitting down and talking to them and, come on, go with me and my kids. That's mentoring to me.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be a structured program. As long as you have the parents' permission and they know you, and they trust you. Absolutely. A man should take up, and it takes a village to raise a kid. Like I said, I come from a single parent home, but my mother knew to surround me with, my band director went to my church. He was the one that told me, he says, Keith, you keep playing that too, but you can go to college tree just like them boys playing football. It had never occurred to me. And that's how I went to college. My mother couldn't afford to send me to college. The deacons at my church were all principals and school teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the ladies at the church were school teachers, and so I was able to be around. My mother was able to have me be with men that could teach me stuff she couldn't.
That's very important,
And that's what we as young men
yes, sir.
need to do with not only our own sons and I'm talking specifically for young African American boys
Absolutely.
that need to learn how to be something other than mannish and bad.
Yeah.
And you don't have to lay hands on a kid to straighten out a son. You see a little bad boy, and once you give him that look, and he know you're not playing,
yeah,
he's not gonna do that.
that's it.
That's what mentoring is. And so a lot of the guys that I see, I'm recognizing them now. They're young, like Gino Porter, great young man. He's playing coaching ball. It's a whole list of them. Braylon Dedman, all of those guys come through Muskogee. Those kids are thirsting for what you have to offer them.
Absolutely.
And you don't, my father worked for the city, drove a trash truck and a cab. Okay, you don't have to be a funeral director or a doctor or a lawyer.
No.
Whatever it is you do in life, teach them boys how to be men.
Absolutely.
That's what they need, particularly if they're from a single parent household that doesn't have a man in the household, so that women will stop raising boys to be men. It could be some men to help raise those boys to be men.
Absolutely.
That's how we'll have better men and better society.
And I think that goes back to me just growing up. My mom raising me. I think that what you just said is perfect. I had that struggle of, man, I know I'm going through, puberty and stuff like that, and different things like that, and I don't really know how to kind of manage it.
Right.
And my mom can't help me. So that mentor, first of all, by the grace of God, I am where I am now, but I wish I could have had that mentor, earlier than going into my freshman year, to have that mentorship, that strong bond with a man to help me through these things. I came out okay, but I feel like I could have been a lot better if I would have had that. And this is kind of off subject a little bit, but I just kind of want to applaud you for the Biglow Bad Boys, the Biglow Babes. I didn't get to make the teams.
Well,
I had just moved back. But if you could just speak on that just a little bit. I know it's the past, but can you tell us the vision on why you did it was baseball, basketball, right?
And softball.
And softball. Can you give us the vision
I'll
on
start with the Bad Boys first. When I grew up in Muskogee, going back to where my mother would put me in positions to be around other males, and when I was in the 5th and 6th grade, I was experimenting with sports.
Okay.
Well, in Muskogee, the Kiwanis Club sponsored the football league, like the Paul Young League here. The Kiwanis Club sponsored that. And then the rodeo, the Roundup Club, which is the Black Rodeo Association of Muskogee, they sponsored the basketball team. And First National Bank sponsored the baseball team. But they would take underprivileged kids, what was considered underprivileged kids, and put them on teams. And so I remembered that, and that was very helpful in molding me and keeping me out of trouble. So I said to myself, if you ever get your own business, you should sponsor a team. And thus came the Biglow Bad Boys. And then Gwen Coulter approached me way back then, too, about some girls to play softball. Mr. Big, would you start help us with the softball team? I said, yeah, if I can make the shirts and name the team.
Yeah.
And I said, we're going to call them the Babes. My mother's nickname is Babe.
Wow.
And so that's where we got the Biglow Babes from. So now, products of the Biglow Babes, Jimmy Coleman just ran for 2,000 yards.
Yeah.
His mama's a Biglow Babe.
Oh, man.
Gwen Coulter's daughter got kids now. They Biglow Babes. It's a whole bunch of young ladies in the community that are now parents with kids in Muskogee Public Schools.
That are all
Same thing with the Bad Boys.
Yeah.
Gerald Breedlove Jr. lives he's either in Dallas, Oklahoma City. Successful. I saw pictures of his son playing football. I think he's in Tulsa.
Okay.
Might be in Broken Arrow. Dadrian Brown.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He works for me at the funeral. He's been in mortuary school. He works for me. Josh Berry used to coach the Roughers.
Yeah.
He's a Biglow Bad Boy. The girls' head basketball coach now. Jeremy Ford. Biglow Bad Boy. It works.
Yeah.
It's really simple, but it works.
Planted those seeds, and now is
all of them are successful.
Yeah.
Contributors to society,
Absolutely.
Raising families, and that's all what we should do. Produce people that's going to be successful, that can find their way and contribute to society.
Because we can't do it forever.
No,
we can't do it forever.
No,
man.
Somebody's going to have to drive me to the cemetery in the hearse. I can't drive myself out there. So
Very
guess
true.
what? I got to train somebody, either my sons or somebody that wants to take over, so that whenever my time comes, they got to drive me to the cemetery. And in the meantime, I may need a doctor. Somebody got to be a doctor.
Yeah.
Somebody got to dump the trash.
Yeah.
Somebody got to cut the yard.
Trades.
It don't matter what it is.
Yeah.
Man,
Absolutely.
don't work, don't eat.
Absolutely. That's a gem right there. Man,
Mm-hmm.
don't work, don't eat.
Mm-hmm.
So I got one last question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super excited for this, man. I've been looking forward to this for a while, actually, and reading in the newspaper and things like that, watching the news and things like that. But we got the Rougher Village coming to Muskogee, 2021. Am I off?
Should be through by then.
2021, and it's basically going to be a sports facility for K through 12, or just the high. Is it more just high school, or that's why I'm
The overall facilities of school is going to be able to service K through 12.
okay?
But the Rougher Village is where the new football stadium
Yes, sir.
and the new basketball arena is going to be.
Okay.
You know where the J Unit is on the high school, on the west end of the high
Yes,
school?
sir.
It's going to be right there. If you go by there now, you'll see that they've already put the fence up. They're getting ready to start moving dirt here pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
But the stadium, the south end of the stadium, will be right there close to that
area right
Shawnee
there.
Avenue.
Yes, sir.
And the arena, I think, is going to be on the north end.
Oh man, that's gonna be good.
The J Unit, I think, is going to be part of that. It'll be like an athletic training facility, and then they already have the new one that we built on the backside.
Yes, I seen that.
And of course, we had recent upgrades to the baseball field and the
mhm.
girls softball, top notch.
That's
And
all we asked
every
for.
school is getting $1 million from that bond issue. It's not just for athletics. Every school is getting $1 million. Can you imagine the children that we're going to produce in those
Oh
facilities?
man, I'm excited.
Plus the draw for other kids. That
Yeah.
we have the best academic programs to get kids prepped for college in this area. People always try to find something negative about Muskogee Public Schools. Most of them are lies. You can check the facts for yourself.
That's awesome.
That's one of the things I'm
I
proud
think I
of,
didn't
certainly.
even know that aspect of it. So every school is getting $1 million.
At
It's going to
least.
really boost up everything.
They're
in the
rebuilding
community.
AR, which is going to be the ninth grade center.
Ninth grade center.
And then I always forget the name of that school right over there.
Used to
on
be Ben
Haskell.
Franklin.
No, on Haskell, right off of York Street.
Oh, Grant Grant
I
Foreman.
think it's Grant Foreman.
Okay.
Tony Getz.
Tony Getz. That's what it is.
Tony Getz. You notice they've already torn it down. They're going
Yes.
to rebuild it because those buildings were just full of asbestos and old, and they had to be torn down. But everything else, they're getting upgrades and $1 million.
Man, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So it's very exciting for the future of the kids. Even my son says when he gets through in college and maybe playing pro football, whatever, he wants to come back here and live and raise his kids.
Yeah. I mean, we have it right here. That's the purpose of this podcast, the roots of this podcast. Before I even stretch out anything else, I want to make sure that people know that there is positivity. There is things that you can do right here in Muskogee raising your kids. This is not a bad place to raise your kids at all.
And it's going to get better.
It's way better, way better. And people like you and other people that are that are involved. Even though your kids are not in school, I get that, but you're still involved and you care about the whereabouts of these kids. It means the world to me because being a father, in the same similar background that you were in, as far as not having a father in the house that raised you, it's scary for me because I want to make sure that my son is where he needs to be, that he's doing the right things, and knowing people that like you that are going to help him as he goes through this process is priceless for me. I can't pay for that, so that's where that's kind of where I'm super excited about. But thank you, Mr. Keith Biglow, for being here today.
Indeed.
Man, everybody, I know this is a awkward way of saying this, but we all have to pass away. If you need to get prepaid funerals, if you need burial insurance, anything of that nature, please come on down to Keith D. Biglow's funeral home and come talk to him, set up a meeting with you or your family and talk about those things that, it's not so easy to talk about. Also, please, if you can, he is on the school board. He's on the school board of education. But please check on your children. Please, go just check in periodically on them.
Be involved.
Be involved. Do those little things help out not just yourself, but everybody that's in this rougher community, in Muskogee community.
Wear your mask.
Wear your mask. Wear your mask. Use hand sanitizer. All of those things will help out, better this community in Muskogee, and help us out moving forward. Before I let everybody go, I want to give a special shout out to my elite sponsor, Farm Bureau by Scott Abbott, and Interstate Properties by Holly Miller. Thank you and have a great day.
non-data showstopper right now is the one and only, no other. Just pulled up, lifted and persisted, ignoring my voice of reason. I've seen things that I'll never mention. I've seen people do more for attention. Here comes Mr. Know-It-All. I know so much, but I don't listen. Lord knows that I feel that pressure. God, please forgive me for stressing. Just pulled up, lifted and persisted, ignoring my voice of reason. I've seen things that I'll never mention. I've seen people do more for attention. Here comes Mr. Know-It-All. I know so much, but I don't listen. Lord knows that I feel that pressure. God, please forgive me for stressing.